Entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into open work sessions, followed by a closed administrative session to discuss internal auditor projects pursuant to the general provision article section 3-104.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. First item on the open work session is the discussion of the, we have one cancellation.
Right.
Yeah, we have a cancellation on the Rise Zone. Ms. Soper called to say that she was not going to be able to make it today. We appreciate the phone call. The next item on the agenda is the property tax credit for volunteer fire departments. And we have Chief C.K. Twilley here. Mr. Twilley, how are you, Chief?
How are you, sir?
Good, good. And Ms. Zolan, Finance Director. Very important part of this segment.
Good morning, men.
Good morning.
And ladies.
Good morning. So thanks to Mr. Benson.
Yes.
He really, I think, did a lot of work in trying to put together what we feel is a rather good bill, legislative bill. A couple of the issues that we ran into, and we appreciate your estimates of 25 homes, I believe you said, per district.
Yes, sir.
And we do know that trying to get all the information sometimes from every single department and the exact number is very, very difficult. So pretty much the crux of what Mr. Benson helped us put together was to try to take an evaluation from the maximum 25 per station, figure out what that total number might be. I think it was about 750,000 we thought might be the total impact. And sort of fashioned a bill in reference to that on a prorated basis. So that would be the maximum, and there's a certain particular amount that would be benefited in relief of property taxes first year, second year, and third year for each volunteer. So, yes.
If I may, so I received yesterday the information from the departments. I did get one last week.
You did good.
And I got part of the information yesterday, I will say. So in looking at all the stuff that I got, we have to make very clear in the resolution or the legislation that property addresses have to be on the information provided because some of them have P.O. boxes. I can't determine somebody's property from a P.O. box. Some of them, one department submitted all of their forms, but had no addresses. So John Smith from a department, I can't tell you what property he owns.
I didn't go through all the I didn't have time to do.
That's fine.
So I was able to, for two departments, and unfortunately it's two small departments, Powellville and Allen, the first year impact would be $26,000. Mm-hmm. Now, there's two other things that council needs to be aware of in looking at those two departments. I'm not going to say any names, not say anything, but these are some things that I think need to be considered in the legislation. If a person owns their home with somebody else, spouse, non-spouse, do they get a full credit? Because there are people in there that, at least from what I can infer, and I am making a total assumption, that they are not married. I'm making an assumption based on what's in the land records. It's just names, and the names don't have the same last name. But that is a total assumption on my part. So the volunteer, on a married basis, we're saying, yep, they can have the whole thing. On a non-married basis, do they get the whole thing? Second question is on somebody who submitted. I am making, again, an assumption. The only person on the land record is the spouse, not the volunteer. They don't technically, per the state, own the property. So this legislation doesn't cover that concept.
Sure.
And so I don't want to be in the finance department making judgment calls on that information. We need this legislation to say you have to be on the deed and with the state of Maryland. And because that would be my recommendation is that they've got to be on, we take our billing information from the state assessment office, which comes from the deed. So if the volunteer is not listed on the deed, should they be in a strict sense, they're a renter. They would be like somebody living in an apartment because they don't have an ownership right in that property.
And if we gave them that right to have this tax credit, the next thing that would happen would be people renting, coming in and saying, hey, I should get it also, correct?
Correct.
So-
I think, didn't we say in the last work session that you were going to have to be able to produce that was your residence and you owned it?
Well, but, so what is proof of residence? So right now, what we were saying, so right now, the way this is written is you have to have the land record. Well, again, I have one and I'm not saying any names, but there is one person in the probably 20 that I've looked at. They have the same address, same last name, they're not on the list. They're not on the deed.
Well, why did they even send it in?
I can't answer.
Yeah, what I'm
But
saying is-
they view themselves, I am
okay.
making an assumption
They
that they're
assume.
married.
Yeah.
I'm making the assumption that they're married and that well, I own the house, I live with my spouse, but they're not on the deed. So that is something that we need to consider. The last piece, this is something in a conversation I was having, and I literally only found this out this morning. I want to read you language, and I got to find it now, from the IRS. If we provide this tax credit, state or local tax benefits, this is literally from the from the IRS website. In some cases, volunteer firefighters receive benefits in the form of state or local tax credits or rebates. If these benefits are offered in return for services performed, which is how we are setting this up, their value represents income to the worker for federal tax purposes and should be included in taxable wages. So what that will mean, most likely, I have not vetted this with our accounting firm just to make sure, but most likely the way I read this, we would have to send them a 1099.
Well, we went through that with the death benefit, correct, a few years ago?
Yes.
You know,
So
then-
I just want everyone to be aware, if this gets enacted, the most likely outcome is whatever we send as a reduction to their tax bill will turn around and be taxable income. Now, it'll be lower tax rate because it won't be the full value. I mean, you're going to get whatever your effective tax rate is, but you will owe taxes on that amount that we are deducting from their tax bill.
It'd be interesting, because like you
Well, I'd
say,
much rather get a $2,000 or $3,000 savings and owe $300.
I just wanted it on the record so that council is aware that if we finish this path through, I'm literally reading from the IRS website, and from the way I read this, we are offering a benefit for services rendered, it's income.
We knew this wasn't going to be simple when we started out. I mean, this has been mulled around among council members and with some of the fire service members for a year, 2 or 3 years, hasn't it?
Oh, we've been dragging this on for 4 years.
Yeah, but I think it's time that we,
Even
cut
if
to the
even if
chase.
that's the case, it's still a heck of a benefit.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Benefit.
I just don't want it to be a surprise.
But you say that, when we went through the death benefit issue, a lot of the fire department members were really surprised and disappointed that they had to pay taxes on that.
Yeah, you went from 10,000, I think they get 7,500,
Yeah.
I believe is what they get.
Yeah.
well, thanks to Ms. Olin, she's brought that to our attention. It's our responsibility to make sure all the firefighters know about it,
Yeah.
EMS people know about it. Ms. Olin, yeah, I think without reinventing the wheel too, possibly, because the state, as you said, the state of Maryland does give tax credits as well. And I'm sure that they have particular guidelines that they're required to follow, and I guess that would be sort of the template that we would want to follow as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in viewing this as the finance director, my view would be, again, I would verify with our outside accounting firm, but my view would be is most likely we would have to provide a 1099 miscellaneous to every person that we create this for.
Now, we don't get a 1099 for the state thing, so why don't we get one for that?
Well, but the state is a deduction off of the state. It's a state thing, and so I am giving a benefit. It's also, I don't know how much your tax amount is associated with that deduction. I don't.
Yeah.
But there are certain additive numbers that you have to, I think if it's over $600, it's supposed to be considered a 1099. I think it behooves the county to provide that because we have language saying that it is income.
So the good thing is, this is a work session. You can take it back to your people, let them know about the information you just received from the executive's office, that a 1099 may be sent to every firefighter for this benefit, and then let us know so we can move forward.
Yeah.
I still see it as a huge benefit.
Oh, I did too.
I mean, huge, but if that's the case, we want to make sure every firefighter is aware of it.
And I'll get in contact with you. I have a few ideas.
So I did want to say that I did run the numbers all the way out. So again, it ramps up from 1,500 to 2,500. So again, in the limited pool that I had time with the information that it's $2,600 for the first year. And this is assuming people's assessments don't change and our tax rate doesn't change and all that kind of stuff. The 3,400 by the time it gets up to 2,500. So 34,000.
Three-year program, on a three-year period, you mean?
So the first 2 years was supposed to be 1,500. The second 2 years is supposed to be 2,000, and then thereafter, so tax bills that go out on July 1st, 2028, 24, 25, 6, yeah, July 1st, 2028, it's $2,500 and
Not to exceed.
not to exceed. And again, holding all things equal, that tax rates don't change, which we know that happens every year, and assessments don't change, the current fiscal note is $34,000. So it ramps up from 26.5 to 34.1 using the same information.
Pam, so we're not the only county to do this. I was just curious, maybe we can reflect on what other counties have.
And again, I literally found out the IRS information
Okay.
this morning.
All right,
So
thank
I did not have an opportunity to reach out to any of my coworkers in other counties to see how they handle it.
Okay.
But, I mean, they may also not be aware. So, but again, I am now aware, and as your finance director, have to make it
We
known.
weren't aware of the other, I don't think, in the beginning, about
Correct.
death benefit. You know, that popped up sometime in the middle, not in the middle, but later in the life
So,
cycle.
and that's why since I am aware, I wanted to let you guys know.
Sounds like we're going to have another work session.
Will you email me anything that you need that you've not received yet, whether it be from CK or
Yes.
us, or what needs to be in the bill to satisfy?
Now, the other piece is, I want to ask the question, I got provided information for stations 2 and 13 for their volunteers. I know it's a limited number, I did not look at.
16 and 2.
16 and 2, sorry. I said the wrong number, 16 and 2. I am assuming the intention of this legislation is supposed to be for all volunteer, including the ones within the city of Salisbury. So again, when I finalize the fiscal note, it will have all of those in it as well. But yes, we are going to have to, if we're taking the forms as what the statement is we're going to have to make sure people include on those forms, and so we're going to have to include language that they have their property address on the form, because again, it's impossible for me to know where Josh Smith, who firefights in the city of Salisbury, lives and owns.
Some of us are going to a fire department meeting tonight. We'll explain that and ask them to get, you can't do a PO box. You got to do a physical
Yeah.
address,
And so, again, I have ones that have, one department, literally, when they fill out their forms to the state, or at least the version that they provided me, had 0 addresses. It just had name. I can't, I can't determine if somebody owns a piece of property in the county based on somebody's name and a fire district, so.
Do the right thing.
So what system are you going to use to identify where
So,
this firefighter lives?
so what
Whether he owns the home?
So the 2 departments that I was able to do, I took the form that they provide with the points. So I need that form, whatever that name is, and I did not look at the name, but that form I need for every person. And it needs to have the physical address as to where they live. And,
Things got to be on the deed.
and the question to the council, since it is legislation, how do you want to address people who are not on the deed? Because if they are not on the deed, in my view, they don't earn the credit.
Mr. President.
Where was that? Yes, Bob, I'm sorry, I should have asked you to introduce it, really.
That's all right.
Because
But
this is your work.
I don't mean it, but can we go back for just a second?
Yes.
So I was asked to review this, make some changes, make some additions. Specifically, I was asked to add a definition for active service status, and we did that. And the definition is a minimum of 50 points per year earned under the rules established by the Wicomico County Volunteer Association, earned in at least 2 different categories. I spoke to Mr. Chief Twilley on multiple occasions. He was kind enough to talk to me and answer my questions. And my understanding is that the 50 hours is basically a universal. Everybody understands what that means in the fire service. And the language that's in here is basically in conformity with the language that's used for the state income tax deduction. So I tried to be consistent, since that's kind of where this comes from in an indirect sense. So the language that's in here is basically the same standard that is used for the state income tax deduction. In this instance, I put that it would be the rules established by the Wicomico County Volunteer Firefighters Association. For the state, it's for the Maryland Fire Association. If I understood correctly from Chief, as it relates to this, the Maryland Fire Association will essentially not have anything to do with this. And so that the rules essentially are coming from the Firefighters Association, which is why I chose to use the words Wicomico County Firefighters Association for the 50 hours. Is that correct?
They set the rules, and that's how, they set the rules to us for as a county, and that's what we adopt.
Right.
To be, you got to get your 50 points to be active in any department.
But they won't have any role as it relates to this specific county.
No,
Right.
no, so I'm sorry, no.
So as it related to that, the state association won't have any role with regard to the county, so I thought it was more appropriate to the Wicomico County Firefighters Association as the defining.
Yeah, I totally
I know
agree
you
with that.
take it from their rules, but basically it's the one you all are establishing. To address Ms. Olin's, a couple things Ms. Olin discussed. If you go to what in mine is on page 3, under a new section, filing of application under paragraph D, in speaking to Ms. Olin, basically, in an ideal world, she would like to have one application file sent to her, basically from the county association. But I think that realistically, it's not going to come that way. And Ms. Olin said that she could live with or work with getting basically 13 separate packages, one from each fire department, volunteer fire department. So the application process is, under this bill, is that each independent volunteer fire company in Wicomico County will submit the application with the name of the firefighter who qualifies. But they are supposed to also include with that either documentation from the county finance department, which I assume would be a tax bill, or my preference would be that they include with it a Maryland State Department of Assessment and Taxation real property data sheet. So if you go online and you look up your house online, there is a printout that you can make that shows your house. It has the name of the owners on it. It says on there whether it's a principal residence or not, and it has the address of the property. So if they use the data sheet and they provide that as part of the application process to Ms. Olin, she's going to look at the data sheet, and the Maryland tax data sheet says on it principal residence. So I think it answers the question, if we mandate that, it answers the question as relative to principal residence. And I think it would make Ms. Olin's life simpler because it provides a single document that's easily accessible to anybody. You just go on, pull up the address, print out the form, and they attach it to the 25 that are done. It'll take 15 minutes to print them out.
I think you can.
And the other, if I may, the other piece I'd like to, right now we use the word a report with the names. I would actually like to get, and some departments did and some departments didn't. I would actually like to get, which is this sheet, the Maryland Income Tax Subtractions, Modifications, Point System Reporting Program. I would like the forms that show the points, that have the signatures on it. Right now, and that's kind of the other issue that I have is some departments, and again, we said report, some departments just provided name, address, and that they qualify. I'd like to actually have this for our files that shows 50 points.
That's similar to what
Yes.
Twilly gave us?
Yes.
Okay.
So again, some departments literally gave me one sheet that had everybody's name on it.
Well, my fire company has well done it because we are in the midst, I told you.
I'm aware. And so, but so you gave me your situation, you have an issue right now with your system, but what I'm saying is that I want the legislation to include the language that I get this report, so that between having this report, having all, and it needs to be a signed copy. Because again, I don't have any signatures on here to say, in this section that I'm holding, that the departments reviewed them.
Well, the piece of paper that Mr. Cannon has, it has our president of our department and our LoSAT coordinator of that department is signed. I don't know.
Yeah, this one happens to be Parsonsburg, and they provided me everybody's report, but not a signed copy.
So you would like one standard
Yes.
for all fire companies?
And so the form is I want the form that shows the points by person. And again, I've got kind of slightly different, I have one of those in one of the other ones, but it's the same thing. It just looks a little different.
Okay.
But it is the same thing. It's just this one isn't signed. I want, again, because, 10 years down the road.
You want somebody to be responsible for it.
Yes, I want somebody to be, and I might not be the one sitting in this chair 10 years down the road. I want the next person that's taking my finance director position have the supporting documentation to show that these people are qualified if this tax credit is still there.
Ms. Olin?
That form you're referring to, where did it come from? Did you read that?
Yeah, they provided the departments provided these.
What department? Because you said they're all different?
Well, this one's from the Maryland State Firemen's Association.
That's the
And
form.
this one, and this says Maryland State Firemen's Association. It just doesn't happen to have the seal. They can look slightly different. I just want the Maryland Firefighters Association, Maryland Income Tax Subtraction Form, signed copy.
Ms.
And
Olin?
I can understand that.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. There is no problem. The only reason that's not signed was because that was emailed to you, and he was trying to get it
Right.
printed out to you. But yeah, every piece of paper that you're going to get will be signed by the president of that department and their LoSAT coordinator. That was just,
And again, I'm just pointing out the information that the
Oh, it's very good.
Can you get a list of things that you need together on a piece of paper?
yes, and I believe I got asked.
I asked her, if you can email
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
I'll give that to Mr. Benson.
And email it to all the council members so we can, or print out a few and we'll take them tonight. Take them tonight and pass them out to the fire at the meeting, so.
To CK, I think what we could do really at these association meetings, you could, if you have a screen or something, you could project the screen from a laptop and show them how to get to that SDAT site. Like Bob said, it is so easy.
well, Mr. Cannon, I will not be there. I have to work on
No,
Tuesday
no,
nights.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
we'll try
somebody,
to
I'm
get
sure they
that
could
word
put a power,
around.
yeah, they could put that out there. And like I said, most forms, they will all be signed. There is not a paper that's not signed. When we get them at the end of the year, when they pass them out at our tax time, they are all signed by the president of that department because they are submitted to the state and they have to be signed for the state.
I don't think Bob was done
The ultimate goal is for Pam to tell us what we need.
Yep.
Us to get together what we need and get this done.
Yeah, and just pass it on like tonight, if whoever goes to the county association meeting, you can pass it on there. I will pass it on at the chief's association meeting. I mean, we're working on it. I'm sorry that some of it's not right.
It's fine. Pam's a stickler.
Well, she's got to be.
That's why
her
we're in
job.
such good shape.
Right. She wants it
And I want it right. I mean, I don't want anybody to.
I don't want finance to be in the judgment business. I want this legislation to have no judgment in it. Whatever law the council wants and and everybody is willing to sign, I don't want to be in the interpretation business and say, well, this person gets it and this person
No,
doesn't.
yeah, right.
I need clear cut. If they don't turn it in by the date, okay, they don't get it. If they don't meet, if they're not on the tax roll as being an owner of the property. Now, you can do that. You know, you can get on your deed, you just have to deal with an attorney. And again, we broke into Mr. Benson, so I think he might have had some additional comments still.
The only comment with regard to that is the definition says it requires it to be the principal residence owned by the volunteer fire department member in Wicomico County. So if there's a husband and wife, but the house is only in the wife's name and the husband is a volunteer member, they're not going to get the credit.
Unless she joins the ladies auxiliary, right?
And gets her 50 points.
So,
And
I
again-
mean, that's
Good
the
as well.
reality of it. I mean, on the other hand, if the house is owned by Joe Smith and his dad and mom, it's still his principal residence and he is an owner, and I would interpret this as the house gets the tax credit under that scenario.
I would certainly hope so. That would affect me.
So, but it has to be the principal residence, and going back, if we mandate that they have, to, as part of the application process, they have to use the Maryland State data sheet, it says on there whether it's your principal residence or not, and that's not a determination that Ms. Oldham's got to make. It's either on the sheet or it's not on the sheet. Now, what it says currently is they could submit either something from the tax office, which I presume to be the tax bill, but I don't think the tax bill says whether it's so my suggestion is that we eliminate that and that we just mandate they have to submit this Maryland State data sheet, which has all the information on it, but it also says whether it's a principal residence or not. And that way, that's it's either says it's on their principal residence or it doesn't. So I would suggest you change that. So the only other clarification is that my understanding is that normally when you all adopt legislation, you want to get a fiscal note so you know how much the maximum amount is that's going to be paid out. In this situation, that hasn't been able to be provided by Ms. Oldham because Ms. Oldham hasn't been provided all the information she needs from the fire departments to be able to do that. So in light of that, the suggestion was made that the bill be changed to basically provide a maximum dollar amount. And then the issue was how that maximum dollar amount would be provided to the volunteers. And there was a suggestion perhaps it could be done on a first-come, first-served basis. I rewrote that, frankly, and made it on a pro-rata basis. My assumption is basically everybody's going to submit everything by April 1st, so it shouldn't, hopefully everything is there by April 1st anyway. And at that point, if the county has said we're going to spend $750,000 a year on this, and it comes in at $1 million, that $750,000 is going to get prorated among the various individuals, as opposed to this person gets a full benefit because they got theirs there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and this person gets zero because they got there at 5 o'clock that afternoon. So I thought the pro rata made more sense. My assumption is that at some point, when unless the fiscal note can be provided between now and when you adopt this bill, and a maximum dollar amount can be estimated, that at some point after this is in place for a year or two, you're going to know what that number is, and you're going to come back and revise this, and it won't be on a pro rata basis anymore, or you may choose not to. But that's the reason I use the pro rata basis. That's my thought process. You all may have a better idea as to how you want to do it. But, you know, you got a pot of money. It's going to get divided up among 100 different people. Do you do it on a first-come, first-served basis, or do you treat everybody exactly the same because they theoretically have to get their information in basically at the same time, but they get 90% of what they would otherwise get but everybody gets 90%. And it seemed to me that was a fair way to do it.
If I get so if I send you the list of what I'm missing, I have 7 departments with relatively complete information. I have not looked at each one within those 7 to see if there's like a PO box or something, an extraneous, one that might be PO box while the rest were okay. But there are 6 stations that I have different levels of information. PO boxes, no addresses. So if I got all of that information, it would take me with my staff, basically it took me 45 minutes to do 20 people because of how I have to look up each person. I have to go into our system unfortunately our system, it's not just so easy that I, click one button and I can pull up somebody's tax bill. I have to kind of go down layers in the system, and that's just the way it works. So it's not a 30-minute project to complete this. This is, multiple hours to complete this project with complete information. I could have complete information if I am provided it with a couple weeks' notice for probably the November meeting, and then we could have a better idea to know whether or not we need to put a limit on the number or not for council. But I would need, not the day before, but at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting, the complete information that I'm asking for. I can pull up at this moment for a fiscal note and not worry about the primary residence or not. But what I really need addresses. That's the piece I'm missing.
What do you think possibly, I had a question on C5. You make a comment in there, Bob. It says on or before the date that is set by the Wicomico County Volunteer Firefighters Association in reference to application and annual verification. Should we not have a more specific exact date there?
We can do whatever you choose to do. Under this bill, the application has to be turned into the county by April 1st. And the departments have to put that information together. I don't.
Maybe put a March 1st date in here.
The way I viewed that, that's a fire association issue. They need to get their members to get the information together. And I'm not sure the county has any role in that, to be blunt about it, because what the county is expecting to get is a unified package. Okay. And so the information that goes into that package comes from the fire departments. If Fire Department A says you got to have it to me by November,
I got you.
And Fire Department B says it's okay if you turn it in on March 30th, I guess that's okay to you guys as long as what Ms. Olin gets is a complete package on April 1st. So that's why I didn't put that in there. I don't have any problems in doing that, but I think that's up to Chief Twilly and his members and his departments.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that in this legislative bill that either as an addendum or exhibits that we should have example of the blank sheet of the Firemen's Association point system and also a redacted sheet from the SDAT website? As examples, in case anybody wants to look up the bill, it'll be in the bill.
That's fine.
That's okay.
I agree.
Okay, all right. Anything else you think we would put in there as an exhibit? We would, to the SDAT, the point system, anything else leaving out?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Hey, yeah, this is a work in progress. I'm looking at this as possibly trying to dovetail with the 2025 budget.
Correct. And so, you need 60 days to have legislation take effect. going back, if I need this by April 1st, the legislation needs to be passed 60 days prior to April 1st to be able to put it in the 2025 budget.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe look at a target of maybe November 1st, and that way, because we want the fire departments to be able to gear up quickly, to know it's a real deal, and then to be able to gear up. That'll give them a month or two to try to collect all the information they need.
So again, I need, the deadline to me to be able to get a good fiscal note is 2 weeks prior to whatever meeting you put it on as a next work session.
You'll send me an email on things
Yes.
that you need on our end and things you need from
Yes.
him on his end.
Yes.
And once I get that,
I will send it actually to the council as a whole.
Okay. All right.
Jeff?
Go ahead. No, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Joe.
I don't know who answers this. Is there a provision if a member falls below the 50 points or stops being a firefighter altogether? How is that tracked?
I mean,
Obviously, they
I
wouldn't
am-
qualify.
I am using, so like I actually got, again, I was sorting through some of this stuff. I got submitted by some departments forms that people didn't have 50 points. In my view, they're not on the list.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize, like I said, I didn't go through all the forms
Right,
either.
and
'cause-
again, I literally got the stuff yesterday, so I'm bringing up the questions that I had. But the answer would be is if they don't have 50 points, finance is going to say they don't
They don't get
qualify.
it.
But I guess maybe I didn't phrase it properly. What happens if they are in the program for 2 or 3, 4 years, whatever, and then they fall below the 50-point threshold?
So it's a 1 year, you earn your credit, so you are doing your points based on the prior calendar year. So if we are looking at implementing this for tax year 2025, which is billed July 1st, 2024, for calendar year 23, they need to have 50 points. If they do not have 50 points for calendar year 23, then they don't earn it for tax year 25.
Okay.
They can earn it the next year in 24, or they could have earned it in calendar year 23, and then in calendar year 24, life circumstances, or they moved away or whatever, or not moved away, maybe they're still there, but they don't run as often.
Firefighter,
They don't earn the 50 points. They don't get the credit. That's why I have an April 1st date in here, is because we would have to evaluate this on an annual basis to determine the dollar amount per year.
If you look at section C4I, the fire department member has failed to maintain active service status in the preceding calendar year. In the event the volunteer fire department member shall fail to maintain active service member for 2 consecutive years, he shall be ineligible to receive the tax credit until such time as the fire department. My point is, I think it's in the bill that kind of addresses the question you asked, Mr. Merritt.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
You have a comment, Joe?
Okay, good.
If I understand correctly, we're going to add exhibits for the SDAT form and the specific form that Ms. Olin wants. I would ask Ms. Olin perhaps to send me if you could email me the form so I make sure I've got the correct name.
Yeah, I don't have a blank one, but maybe John might have the blank one. I have ones that are filled out.
If somebody will I just want to make sure I've got the correct form.
Now, there's 2 forms. She had a different form than what Mr. Cannon has. So either one of them forms will be able to, yeah.
They're both
Either
named
one
the
of the-
same thing.
So they'll be either one of them forms will be able to work,
So
correct?
there's 2 versions, but they both have the exact same title. One has a seal on it, one doesn't. I don't care about the seal, that part.
You just want somebody's name on the bottom of it.
I want this name, which is the same name on both, because I have the same version as you do. One department submitted it with the seal, one department submitted it without the seal. I just want signed versions of those forms per person. And again, because the title of the program is exactly the same, having the seal or not having the seal doesn't mean anything to me.
Sounds good. Very clear.
And the only other thing is, I added 2 recital paragraphs to to the deed, to the bill. If you look, it's the fourth and fifth recital paragraphs, fourth and fifth whereas paragraphs. I'm not sure they're necessary. I added those after we added the pro rata language, and the point of adding those was to say why we put the pro rata language in.
If we're not going to adopt at this moment and we're waiting to get, the rest of the data, I would feel those could come out.
I don't think they're, what I was hoping to do today, which is what's happened, is that hopefully Mr. Twilley, Chief Twilley, and if you are going tonight, maybe you can impress on at the meeting that it's incumbent on them to put this information together and get it to Ms. Olin, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so that she has time for your November bill, so that we have that. And if we do that, then we can take out those 2 whereas paragraphs, and we can take out the pro rata language because it's not needed any longer. But it's incumbent on the volunteer fire companies to put that information together so that Ms. Olin has it, so she can get a fiscal note.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, it's your discretion as to how you want to, what you want to keep in and take out, Mr. Benson. I understand that. Would you have a problem if we were to distribute this at the meeting tonight to give them an idea of where we are and what to anticipate as a draft?
I don't have any issues with that.
It's also in the public brief book.
So it's
That's true. Okay, good. I just want to make sure before we started throwing this out there and making multiple copies that they would recognize that this is a draft and it's still a work in progress.
I think the main thing we need to get out there is this list of items she needs. That's the main thing, that's.
And I apologize for that. That's probably miscommunication between everybody. They kept asking, and I told them that's what, but
Yeah, that's fine.
things don't work the way they need to.
Well, and it's until you start seeing some information, you don't know where the holes are. So I started seeing some of the information, and this is identified some of the holes in the legislation, and hopefully we can get it rectified.
Okay. Anything else? Everybody good? Right? Mr. Benson?
No.
Thank you. Chief, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you,
again.
sir.
Appreciate you taking the
Thanks.
time.
Thank you.
Pam. Appreciate it. That was productive. Yeah, very much so. Next item on the agenda is Forest Conservation Easement, whereas we're talking about the removal and relocation request with Forest Plains Lane and Parsons Lake Drive. Ms. Marilyn Williams, how are you today?
Just fine, thank you.
Good. If you could just announce for the public.
Sure, I'm Marilyn Williams, Land Development Coordinator. And this request is for 2 parcels, parcels 223 and 398 on map 30. They total 162.49 acres. And we are requesting the removal of 4.99 acres of forest conservation easement to an off-site mitigation bank, and the reconfiguration of the remaining 33.63 acres. And this is all tied to a proposed subdivision for Parsons Lake. And there is an existing forest conservation easement on the property. You may recognize it because in March, this came before you to relocate just a small portion of the existing easement, but through further research, it was determined that we needed to rearrange more acreage and then remove 4.99 acres to an off-site mitigation bank.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Training?
Yes.
The colored, the final drawing, these little squares, the white part, I'm looking at the second map with the
Yes.
brown. Are they houses?
Those are proposed lots. It is a proposed 329 lot subdivision. And this is a continuation of the Parsons Lake, villages at Parsons Lake area.
I look at this and it's like a lot of houses. And around here, the brown is the forest, what you're talking, wood?
The orange, yes,
The
that was
orange.
highlighted for you.
Yeah, that's the wood.
That's all going to remain as forest conservation easement, yes.
Because the only reason why I'm saying this little piece here, there's a big, I think about the deers and the animals. It seems like we're taking the forest and building houses, and the deer wind up coming into neighborhoods because they have nowhere to go. They don't know which way to turn when we do that. When you do the land development, I just think a little more forest should be, see, because some of it's skinny, you know. The big piece over here, that's not bad, but over here it looks like it's no, you know.
Well, there is a requirement with the forest conservation regulations that there has to be a minimum of 35-foot wide strip of land with a 2,500 square foot for each of the separated pieces. But there will be significant trees along the northerly line. And then on the southerly line, that is a branch. And so there are trees on both sides of the branch.
And also, if they go in the woods, with all these houses, and you have hunters, and bullets have no special names, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there wouldn't be any hunting on here,
No,
though.
hunting, I wouldn't want to live near the wood.
No.
I just look at all these houses and then how the little thin lines about the wood.
Those are
Okay.
all lots proposed.
Yeah, yeah.
Where exactly is this? Like I said,
Off of East Naylor Mill,
Down,
where villages of, and out near the center of Salisbury.
it's on the right, on the left. Near Vernon Powell's.
Yeah, right up the road from Vernon Powell.
Vernon
Right.
Powell's.
And then
Oh, wait.
off of Naylor, East
is it off
Naylor.
Brown Road? Or-
Brown Road is, this is Brown Road. So this will be continuing the development from East Naylor on to Brown Road.
Questions? How does this come back to us, Ms. Sterling?
It does require a public hearing, and we can have that October 17th.
Okay?
I just one question.
Sure.
So the roads that are there, so this is 300 houses, potentially. What are we going to do? Is there like going to be an impact or something on the roads? Just because they're not that, I don't know if they're really designed. I mean, I've been down those roads lately, and there's a lot of cars that go down those roads right now. And add 300 more households, that's maybe 600 more cars on a daily basis. I'm just concerned about the amount of traffic and that this would cause. I'm not against building or anything. It's just
Right.
I'm just concerned that this would cause a big deal with the traffic flow.
So the Planning Commission, this has already been through the Planning Commission, and, you know, they took into account the additional traffic during their studies, and Brown Road, I believe, will retain, the county will retain it. So the Public Works Department, you know, approves of any of the entrances. But it's during the Planning Commission reviews of these projects that they review any potential impacts to the community services.
I never
A
know.
lot of properties.
Huh?
It's a lot of properties.
I know.
Sure.
I know.
I
Right.
have another question.
And so it's during that process of the Planning Commission where all of the county services are reviewed and the impacts on them.
I have a question.
But this is a city project, too.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's a city project too, you're saying?
Yes, it is a city project.
Since it's a city project, are they going to, I know when I was on the city council, we had the developers to do the infrastructure, like the roads, as part of, so it wouldn't cost the taxpayer
They have to build the roads.
to build the roads? Okay. that's
Yes,
what
they have to build the roads to
and
the
lighting
city
and all that,
standards.
And all the lighting.
Yes, the city requires
Okay.
the
Right.
roads to be built to the city standards. and-
Okay.
I know everyone's not in this room right now. I would feel better if I had more time to talk to people in the community that live around there, just to make sure that we're making the right decision. Not that, like I said, not that I'm against building anything. It's just that, you know, this is it's small community already, and the roads are tight already, and I just wouldn't want to get a whole lot of backlash because people in the area have 300 more cars on the road or whatever, and I mean, I just think I would like to have more time to talk to more people about this issue.
A question, those yellow signs that are always out,
Yes,
is
the
that part
public
of this process
notices.
as well?
Not for the forest relocation. Now, all that would have been taken care of during the planning commission process. Again, this has already received final approval,
Yeah,
I
see what you're
believe.
saying. Okay, yeah, this is,
Yeah.
okay, so this is just simply a result
This is
of
just
the-
for the forest conservation relocation.
So it has already been vetted as far as the additional homes are concerned. That's already been done.
Right.
Public notices established.
Well, I mean, I know how public notices go. You stick a sign in the ground and you see it or you don't see it. I mean, but I personally would like to call a few neighbors myself and go out there and just double check. That's me. That's
Sure, sure, but I mean, the horse already left the barn on that, I think. This is just for mitigation.
But you can sign up also for the planning commission agendas. I know that when I used to post them to the website, it would say, okay, do you want to send it out to everybody that has signed up to receive this agenda? And we send it out immediately, and you can get the planning commission agendas in your email if you'd like.
You don't.
Okay.
We do send those out, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So council already receives those. And I mean, as I stated before, we will have a public hearing on this on October the 17th.
Right.
Okay.
And during their planning, I do know they do traffic studies. That's one of their studies they do to see how much traffic goes in that phone. We have to remember also, I know in the city, back in the day, you had 300,000 cars that probably people didn't even live in our county or our city coming into work or just traveling up and down 13 and 50 and stuff. So we're going to have traffic. We're not a little town anymore. Believe it or not, I found a little bumper-to-bumper traffic, 5 o'clock.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Ms. Williams, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Entertain a motion to adjourn to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.